This is Amigos PC.
If you were looking for a highbrow, fancy, smart, regal podcast with hosts that love to talk about horse riding, badminton, and trips to the vineyard, you're in the wrong place. This is Amigos PC. If you're looking for drinking, random nonsense, stunts, shenanigans, and balls out craziness, you've hit the jackpot. This is Amigos PC, and this is Scott and Mark.
Hello, welcome everybody. Today's episode is brought to you by Fanetics. Fanetics is the world's largest collection of official fan gear from all leagues, teams, players you love. If you enjoy our show and looking to buy a new jersey, sweatshirt, hat, you can support us by going to podgo.co/fanetics and get 25% off your next order. That's podgo.co/fanetics. Fanetics officially licensed everything. It's good. A lot better than the last time.
Oh, yeah. You stumbled through it last time.
Yeah, but that was good.
We have a special guest joining us today. Is Antion. Did I say that right?
You said it right.
Nice.
And I used to go by Vic Briggs.
That was me.
It was you.
So it's very surprising that you're in. This happened to be like last minute and kind of random. And we're super excited that you're able to come in live.
Definitely live, yeah.
To our recording location. What brings you to Arizona?
Well, I've been visiting Arizona for a long time. I first played here with the Animals in about April of 1968.
Okay.
Oh, very cool.
And because of I hate to use the word religion, but we'll say religion, my Sikh religion, I've been visiting the congregation here ever since the early 70s.
Okay.
And right now, we've been here since September. We're staying at there's a beautiful Sikh temple. Actually, it's called a Gurdwara, which is near 7th Street in McDowell.
Okay.
On Oak. And we've been staying there, and I've been singing there since September.
Okay.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, well, it wasn't intentional to stay that long. We had a hell of a time getting out of New Zealand, which is where we officially live right now. It took us 3 or 4 months and 3 flight cancellations.
Oh.
And we were going to stay in Phoenix for about 2 months. Well, what happened was that when you go back to New Zealand, you've got to go into quarantine for 15 days.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
So we started to set up the thing at the end of November. The quarantine was all booked up.
Oh.
So we booked into January 9th, we were supposed to leave. And then the airline is Cathay Pacific from Hong Kong. We were going to go here to Seattle to Hong Kong to New Zealand. But it was all we could get.
Oh, man.
Well, Cathay Pacific canceled. So then finally we managed to get rebooked into the quarantine, booked with United, but Air New Zealand's, you know how they do this code shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now we're due to leave February the 9th.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool. Nice.
But we've been having a grand time in Phoenix. Love the weather.
Yeah, we had some rain. today.
Maybe not the last couple of days.
Yeah.
That's good for us. We like it when we get the rain.
Yeah, I
We
guess.
hardly see it.
I'm not a huge fan of it getting as cold as it is. I'm
No,
originally
no.
from Wisconsin, and the winters there are awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like the colder it gets, I'm like, like I need my summer to come back. So you have a very impressive music career throughout your life. Can you give us some insights, some backstories of
Sure.
the Animals and?
Okay,
And
I've got too many stories. You know that, don't you? Where would you like to start?
I guess start off in England where you grew up, or,
Sure.
or as far as
Well,
kind of.
Okay, so to understand, people do not to this day understand why so many great musicians came out of England and what happened in that particular period.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't really know. We didn't know what we were doing. Oddly enough, in the same year as I was born Clapton, Pete Townsend, Rod Stewart, a whole bunch of people. We were all almost exactly the same age. And initially, we grew up on a diet of light orchestral music, because that's mostly and pablum pop.
Yeah.
Because that's what was on the radio. And there was a lot of music on the radio in Britain. And if you don't judge it in terms of, this stuff is schlocky, the music was really of a very high quality. Like the light orchestral stuff, like even in the States in the late 40s, early 50s, there was this guy, what was his name? Can't remember his name, but he was having all kinds of like orchestral hits. Oh, the guy that did, slow and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of that kind of music around.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't realize there was this guy like coming into our blood, So then, well, I don't want to go into too much detail. But in the mid 50s, there started a craze called skiffle. Now the roots of skiffle are fascinating, but I'm not going to go into it. Skiffle, loosely defined, is Brits with acoustic guitars, cheap acoustic guitars, I hasten to add, playing acoustic American music.
Okay.
Now, get a kind of perspective, right? In the 40s and the 50s, even into the 60s, the Brits really had a very limited understanding of what was going on in the United States. They didn't realize that, if you wanted to hear like black blues, you would have to go to one side of town. If you wanted to hear folk music like Woody Guthrie or guys like that, you have to go to the other side of town.
Yeah.
They didn't understand the divisions musically and racially in the United States.
Right.
So they just lumped it all together. They'd get these American records and they start playing this stuff. And it was a craze, and it lasted for 2-3 years. And it was given the name of skiffle. Don't ask me how, but that's what it was called. The Beatles started as the Quarrymen, a skiffle group.
Yeah.
Right. So, like a lot of other kids, I was caught up in this, and my mother bought me a guitar. By the way, my father was American.
Yeah.
Yep.
I read that.
I saw that. Yeah.
Okay. My father was Second World War. He was captain in the Big Red One, the first infantry. Unfortunately, he was killed in the northern France a couple of months before I was born. So my mother got me this guitar, and I really took to it. I mean, it was like, like a duck to water. You might say. So before long, I was playing in these skiffle bands, and then around the same time, rock and roll made its way into Britain. But the difference between one of the differences between rock and roll and skiffle was you could get into skiffle for not much money. To get into rock and roll, you needed maybe a drum set or a electric guitar and an amp and stuff like that. Well, we just didn't have that.
Right.
But we were all listening. We started to listen to Bill Haley because he was first. Then, of course, came Elvis, and then came Little Richard and Chuck Berry and Fats Domino and those guys.
Yeah.
So we were like, just as much as we'd absorbed this other music, we were absorbing, the roots of rock and roll.
Right.
And then when in about, I think it was 58 when the Feds went after Alan Freed. Do you remember when the Feds went after Alan Freed? Maybe you
I do
don't know what
not
I'm talking
remember
about.
that.
No.
Okay.
Alan Freed was like the Pied Piper of rock and roll. He was a DJ from Cleveland. That's what had the
Was he
rock and roll.
the one that was getting all the drugs to play records and like money laundering kind of thing? Which I'm sure a lot of them did back then, but
there was a lot of stuff going on.
yeah.
There was a lot.
But I mean, I think wasn't he getting like paid or wasn't he doing stuff to? Yeah.
Well, anyway, the Feds went after him. They decided to make an example of him.
Yeah.
Jerry Lee Lewis went to England with his 13-year-old wife and got totally canned. Chuck Berry was put in jail for crossing state lines with a minor for what. Elvis was in the army. Bill Haley was getting too old. So who knows how much it was planned or whether it just happened, but rock and roll kind of devolved.
Yeah.
And then was all the Bobbies, Bobby Rydell, Bobby V, who went, by the way, I toured with Bobby V once, really sweet guy. Bobby Rydell, Bobby V, Fabian,
Fabian.
Yeah.
And it was all really pretty schlocky. Similar thing happened in England. Well, by now, the scene in England was all around London because, London was really the music capital.
Yeah.
And we, the musicians in London, professional musicians, we were playing this schlocky kind of stuff because that's how you got a gig. I mean, we're doing covers.
Yeah.
And there wasn't really any original music, but there was plenty of work. There was a lot of dance halls, that type of thing. Well, what we didn't know was up in Liverpool, nobody told them to quit playing rock and roll. In Liverpool, Manchester. So,
is that where like the Stones or maybe like where like
No.
Sabbath was or
No,
way before that?
Oh,
Is that-
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Okay.
no,
Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry, I didn't
it
mean
was-
to jump the gun there.
No,
but
no,
yeah.
that's right. That's right. So it just so happened my first professional gig, I was with this band called The Echoes. And we went up to a town called Chester, very nice town, kind of historic, and we were playing a week at this theater.
Mm.
Well, the piano player, a guy called Ian Hines, he said, you know, we're not that far from Liverpool. He said, I was in Hamburg with some of these musicians from Liverpool, and they're really good. And we're like, oh, Liverpool. No. He said, in fact, the top band in Liverpool is called the Beatles.
Mm.
And we didn't hear Beatles, we heard Beetles,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
the British equivalent of Bugs. And we're like, what a stupid name. We don't want to have a name of a band like that.
Yeah.
He said, well, I'm going to call some of my friends and see if we can get them down here. So the next night at our show, these two guys showed up. One was tall, blonde, had a kind of a stutter. The other was shorter, dark hair, big nose, and a ring on every finger. And the tall guy was Rory Storm and the Hurricanes. And the other guy was his drummer, Ringo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we met him, we talked to him. You know, they were real, I mean, London musicians had a kind of a lot of attitude. These guys were like, hey, you know, what's going on?
They were real
nice.
chill.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Very good.
So they said, you know what? There's this club in Liverpool called the Cavern. And they have lunchtime sessions. You guys should get on the train. Doesn't take very long to get there. Go. He said, I'll fix it up with the guy that runs the place. You go there, you know, get on the stage, play a couple of songs, and just do, I mean, we were like, you know, delighted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So next day we went to the Cavern, and the band was Jerry and the Pacemakers.
Mm.
Oh,
And
okay.
they were, you know, real nice.
Yeah.
And that was a Thursday. And then we were working with this singer, a guy from India, as it happens, called Rolly Daniels, who was really good. So we said, well, how about we come back tomorrow and bring Rolly? I said, yeah, we'll do it. The guy would say, yeah, come on, we'll put you up on stage and you can do a few songs. And blah, blah, blah. So the next day we came back with Rolly, and the band was the Beatles
Wow.
with Pete Best on drums. And they were like black greasy hair, leather jacket, leather pants, you know. They were
Were they all matching then too? Like
yeah,
where they were wearing all those
yeah.
things?
Well,
Yeah.
black t-shirt,
Yeah.
black leather jacket, black leather pants, and greased back hair, you know, like
Yeah.
you know, that the rock and roll style.
Right. Yeah.
And so, you know, that's how I got to see the Beatles. This was September of '61.
Wow.
Yeah.
With your music and the style you play on you did back when, it sounded for the time being like very experimental. Like you and Hendrix have, it seems like a style that kind of goes together the way you play your guitar.
Well, you know, Jimmy once said, and I was really surprised to find. Well, Jimmy said, "There's a book about Jimmy. There's a lot of books about Jimmy. this was written by a lady who's like a real close friend of his. Like
Okay.
somebody who's really close to him. And in the book, it talks about me, and he said it talks about the first night when he came down to this club called the Scotch, and really took London by storm.
Yeah.
Well, that was when I met him. He was playing on my amp that night.
Wow.
And he said, yeah, he said, Vic Briggs, yeah, he said, really friendly and helpful cat. He said, yeah, he said, good guy. And then later on, this lady who wrote the book, she said to him, Jimmy, what do you really want to do? He says, you know what? He said, I want to buy a bit of land, build a place where me and my friends can come and jam. And she said, well, who do you invite? He said, oh, Clapton for sure. He said, Jeff Beck, if I could get him away from his cars. And he said, Vic Briggs, I learned from him.
Wow.
I was like,
That's wow.
I didn't find out about this till 2014.
Mhm.
So, you know,
Because you read that book or like
yeah,
someone
Or,
well,
yeah,
no,
or you heard about it.
I was in the library in Hawaii,
Okay.
and I saw this book. And when I see a book of that era, I always have a look in the index and see if my name comes up. You know?
Nice.
I mean, you have to, right?
Yeah,
Of course you do. Yeah.
I mean, you have so much connection to so many great, musicians such as yourself. It's crazy. You know what I mean? Like people that you met, like Rod Stewart and stuff that I was reading. You know what I mean? Like you've met so many people.
Although I don't understand why Rod Stewart totally left me out of his book.
Oh,
I
really?
don't know why. We were in this band together called the Steam Packet, and he mentioned everybody else in the band. I don't know why. Didn't mention me.
Oh.
But somewhat.
Darn Rod.
You almost want the notoriety, but then you're like,
But then
it doesn't matter. So you guys moved to New Zealand at some point, and you were saying before you visit Hawaii often.
We lived in Hawaii.
Okay.
See?
We lived in
Told you.
Hawaii. For,
I was telling him that, he didn't believe me. He was like, they didn't live in Hawaii. I'm like, no, I think they did.
Yeah,
Oh.
we for 16 years.
Okay.
It was pretty amazing. Well, what happened was, and we're jumping way ahead.
This guy, that's what he does.
I know, I
That's what he
can't-
does. He doesn't keep on
That's
track.
right.
I
So,
can't keep it online.
You know, basically, Elandra and I, we were part of this. I'm gonna call it what it was, a cult, like a spiritual cult.
Okay.
We were in it for almost 20 years,
Hmm.
and right about the time that we were going, we don't need to do this anymore. A friend called me up and invited me to go to Hawaii. So I went with two other guys. I just had a blast. And the next year, I took Elandra with me. And right about exactly the same time, we decided to get out of this cult.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I could tell you a lot of details, but we got to keep keep
Yeah. No,
simple.
trust me, I want to know. But
We can wait till after.
yeah, later.
Oh, yeah. We I happened across this Hawaiian show. It was like a group, actually a duo called the Brothers Casimiro. And at the time, they were the top act in Hawaii. And I just happened to see their show just on an accident.
Okay.
And I was like totally blown away. I'd never heard anything like it. It was really moving me very deeply. I could tell it was very spiritual. It was very beautiful, had a lot of heart to it, you know. And somehow or other, I said, you know what? I don't know if I can do this, but I want to do this kind of music. And so we happened to be living in San Diego at the time. We flew back to San Diego. I went right out to Tower Records and I happened to find a CD of these guys.
Okay.
So I took it home, wore the damn thing out. This was 91, I think, maybe. Yeah, 91. And by 93, we were living in Hawaii.
Wow.
And I wanted.
She rolls in.
And now his Hawaiian music, people wear it out.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's one thing I did want to talk to you about. With you were doing rock and roll, you know, in London, and
Right.
and you were with the Animals and things like that. Like, where was the progression to start doing this type of music?
Well,
Or like getting into your spiritual journey
yeah.
of well, I mean, you said you didn't want to call it a religion, but basically where your spirituality
Yeah,
mindset is right now.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Well, it really started in 1966.
Okay.
That was when the Stones used the sitar on Paint It Black.
Yeah.
George Harrison was interested in studying with Ravi Shankar. And I happened to be at Eric Clapton's place. And Eric was always very hip to what was going on, you know. And I said, Eric, what's all this with Indian music? Oh, he said, look. He said, and he went over to his record stack and he pulled out two LPs.
Okay.
Remember LPs?
Yes.
Oh, man, I'm glad.
Mhm.
So he gave me
We're not that young, but yeah.
So he gave me these two LPs. One was Indian classical singing, and the other was Indian classical flute. And I went to the import store where he'd gotten them from, and I replaced them. I gave them back to Eric, and I still have them. Still have both those LPs
Wow.
in New Zealand. And I just started falling in love with this music. And then I started getting into Ravi Shankar.
Okay.
And of course, that was, you know, Indian instrumental music has always been a little bit more accessible to Westerners than vocal music. The vocal music is kind of an acquired taste. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I heard Ravi Shankar, and in particularly his brother-in-law, Ali Akbar Khan, who played an instrument that's something like the sitar, but these guys were doing these duets, and I got an album of their duets. And it was like, as a guitar player, I could relate that these guys were mothers, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really good.
in their musical knowledge and in their technique. So that's really where I started getting into it. And then when the Animals started moving to we moved to California, all of a sudden there was a lot more Indian music available because it was starting to be a big craze there. So that's really where I I started getting into it.
Okay.
Wow.
Do you have any like certain, I don't want to say bands, but
Like, do you have anybody that you like now? That's maybe like, is that what you mean? Like more recent, or like
anything you drew
like,
from
what do you
to make your music now? Like any
any inspirations?
There you go.
The word. Yeah.
Well,
I don't know why I couldn't think of the word.
That's all right.
That's
what I'm here for.
This guy Ali Akbar Khan, he was Ravi Shankar's brother-in-law, but his father, Ali Akbar Khan's father, was Ravi Shankar's musical guru.
Okay.
And this guy was like a giant. He was one of the giants of Indian music. So Ali Akbar Khan got a lot of his father's music. I mean, his father used to beat him for not practicing, and he used to tie him to a tree so he couldn't run away and make him practice. So the guy got to be really good, but I think it scarred him a little bit.
Yeah.
So he was a great influence on me.
Okay.
And then when I got out the music. Well, okay, I left the Animals July of '68, and I went to work in the studios in Hollywood as an independent arranger and producer. And this was another amazing time because I was working with the Wrecking Crew. You ever heard of the Wrecking Crew?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Okay.
Was that during Capitol Records or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I was doing it before I got with Capitol Records. I was doing it during Capitol Records.
Okay.
And so I was, using these guys. I was hanging with them because the Wrecking Crew was kind of fluid. It wasn't just one group of guys. There was, I don't know, maybe 20 guys that you could consider to be part of it.
Yeah.
We were hanging out together, And but in addition to that, I was using some of these guys. I was using guys from the LA Philharmonic, guys that played with Henry Mancini, jazz players that had been around for years and years and years, and they were working for me. I mean, and it wasn't an ego thing because I was actually very humble to be in their presence. But for almost without exception, they were great guys. Because that's in the studios in LA. You better be a great guy. Because they are not interested in attitude.
Yeah.
Nobody. I mean, if you're an artist or a hotshot producer like Spector, well, R.I.P. Spector.
Yeah.
Then you can have attitude. But the studio musicians,
No.
Yeah.
So it was very heady stuff, But I was getting, as much as I was enjoying the music and as much as my skills were improving, I was getting just shafted on the business side. And finally, I just threw up my hands and said, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I want to be spiritual. I don't know what it means, but I want to be spiritual.
Is that where you started to pick up like yoga and things like that? Or were
That's
you?
it. That's
Nice.
exactly.
Okay.
I was out of the music business by Christmas of '69. In January of '70, I started yoga very intensively.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I did see, one of your quotes was, with yoga, you don't need drugs or anything like that. Like, where did that stem from? Like,
Well, this guy our teacher that we were with for 20 years, a guy called Yogi Bhajan, very shrewd guy. I mean, we won't go into his ethics, but that's another story. But he realized that these young hippie kids who were coming to his classes, they wanted to get high.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
So he would teach his yoga in such, it was very intense. He would teach it in such a way that you walk out of there like, but you didn't need drugs anymore.
Did it feel like a kind of a euphoria that you had after doing yoga?
Yeah, but it wasn't uncontrolled euphoria. It was like,
Okay.
it
was a control, which is better than the drug option.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you can't
And
control that.
even when I was doing drugs, and I was only ever doing like, marijuana and LSD. I never went to the other stuff. There was always this feeling that your body was not liking it. But with the yoga, your body felt great. I dropped about 30 pounds
Okay.
and I got to be skinny as a rail, and I could twist my body. Well, I could never quite twist myself like a pretzel, but I got to be a lot more
You got
flexible.
more
Yeah, more
flexible,
flexible.
Yeah.
Nice.
And that's where you met, you married, right? Or no?
Well, that's another story.
Spiritual bond.
So,
Yeah.
so somehow or other, I don't know if I volunteered or if it was my girlfriend at the time who was, even though she was American, she didn't much like LA. I think she wanted to go and live in London. So somehow or other, I got volunteered to go and teach yoga in London,
Okay.
which I did. I started teaching. And that's also where I started really getting into the Sikh sacred music, singing, that type of thing. And one night in probably the early summer of 1971, I was teaching class, and all of a sudden this incredibly beautiful woman walked in the class, and she was she was wearing hot pants, which that was kind of the thing. And after mini skirts briefly came hot pants. Right?
Yeah.
And I looked at her and I said, you know what? This woman gets all the attention she can handle and probably a lot more. So I'm not going to take a damn bit of notice of her. I didn't talk to her for 6 months.
That's smart because you're playing like you don't notice her.
He was playing hard
Smart.
to
He's
get.
really smart.
Smart, nicely
We've
done.
been married 48. It's going to be 49.
49.
Oh, nice, nice,
No.
good run, guys.
So
He was smart.
So this was the early, like I say, early summer of 71. But on December 27th of 71, that night, I was going to teach yoga class, and only one person showed up.
Nice.
Your number one fan.
Number one fan. Nice.
Well, she wasn't back then.
Right.
In fact, I think she had a boyfriend back then.
Oh,
Oh, no. I was already your number one fan. You were singing at the end of class, and I was your groupie. And now I'm your eternal groupie.
nice.
See, that's why I love his music, One and the Goddess, because there I am. I'm the goddess.
I tell you
like
what,
it.
we've been together, as you heard, 49 years, almost 49 years. Haven't always been happy, but I've never been bored.
That's sounds like a marriage for sure.
Do you have advice for somebody
yeah,
to last that long?
Yeah, somebody just asked. You're going to
Oh,
get
really?
an answer.
Oh.
Somebody just asked on Facebook, and I said to him, "What's your answer to that?" And he said,
I said,
"Maybe you should say now."
all right, it's all right. It's all right. It's too late now. I said, plenty of good sex, but don't put that on Facebook. So of course she went right to Facebook.
So I immediately
She put
did.
it, yeah. Plenty of sex.
No, actually, if
Definitely
Everybody
on the
loved
internet
it.
now.
That is true.
They said that's the secret.
If you want some serious advice, I'll tell you. If a man wants to keep his woman, a man has to find out what his spiritual path in life is and stick to it like glue.
Yeah,
And focus
that's
on
right.
spirituality.
That's right.
Because
Yeah.
that gives a woman security.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, life purpose, for a man to have a life purpose, to focus on that, and also live in integrity and honesty. These things are very important, and they've kind of gone by the wayside these days.
Oh,
Well, I mean, yeah,
that's
everybody's
true.
leaving everybody at,
Yeah, there's really no.
they're
Well,
not,
so
they're
when
not
he-
working on it.
When he managed to ignore me for 6 months, I knew that he had the commitment. I knew he had the strength to last. He wasn't gonna fall apart later on.
Yeah, that's
Well,
the way to do it.
I wouldn't go as far as say I haven't fallen apart a few times, but you know what? Whenever I've fallen apart, she's been there for me. It's been amazing.
That's awesome. Did you guys ever? And I didn't see. Did you guys ever end up having any kids or
We
want
do.
any kids?
We have two girls.
Two girls. Okay.
One lives in near Sarasota in Florida. The other one lives in Arlington near Dallas, in
Oh,
Texas.
awesome.
Marathon runner and fitness trainer,
Yeah.
both born on his birthday,
Oh, yeah.
Valentine's
Do you-
Day.
Do you
Oh,
make
wow.
do you make sure that they? That's wow. Both of them. That's, what are the chances
of
there?
them.
All three of us on Valentine's Day.
Wow. Did you make sure that they do yoga, or did you ever push that on them to do yoga?
At the as a
Yeah.
child we did. Yeah.
We pushed it on them too much.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is that they're actually started to do yoga.
On their own.
It's only taken them 40 odd years.
Yeah.
But as Elandra said, one of them is a physical fitness trainer by professional, though she's not doing it much anymore. And the other one is an ultra marathon runner. She does these
150
miles.
miles.
Wow.
Well, it's
Yeah.
unique too that they've settled here in the U.S. You guys have been everywhere. Is there
Yeah.
a particular reason that one's in Dallas and one's in Florida?
Well,
They love United States.
Yeah.
They think this is the greatest. They were
Yeah.
born here in California,
okay.
and they never want to
Never
leave.
left.
They've been around a bit, but they think this is the greatest, and so do we.
Yeah.
But they both have New Zealand passports,
Okay.
Nice.
you as well
Yeah.
as.
An escape plan.
So it's
Nice.
like dual citizenship.
They'll never
Yeah.
use
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome.
It is awesome.
Very cool. So I know you spoke about, and I know we're bouncing back, but in the 60s, when you were in LA or area, right? Did you ever go to like any crazy parties that maybe you want to talk about that maybe you went to that maybe you just showed up and saw something crazy or
I don't remember going to too many parties, but you
were the party, right?
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
No, but our hangout was the whiskey.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
And we were in the whiskey, maybe not every night, but we were there a lot of nights of the week, and it was pretty amazing.
But I did.
You partied? Okay. What kind of parties did you guys end up going to?
Well, with the all the royals and all the famous people, all the people I worked with, Roger Moore and Tony Curtis and Gregory Peck and all kinds of famous people. We had parties. We got together.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's
Those
awesome.
were celebrity days. Yeah.
You were in quite a few of the I don't want to say they were like vampire-ish movies, right? Like
They were vampires.
They've become cult classics, whatever that means. They have conventions around the world. They're always inviting me. My signature sells for $300 or something. Just, they're faking my signature to sell. It's
Really?
amazing.
Yeah.
So
do you go to like the convention things like that, or
like any like?
No, I haven't actually been. Antion thinks I shouldn't go, but but it was, it was really fun. It was fun, but then when I saw his aura,
No, it wasn't. You said you hated those parties.
oh, the parties. Oh yeah, because they throw food at each other and
They do?
Yeah.
in the party.
See, power corrupts. That's what I learned. You see,
Definitely.
power corrupts. They had so much money, so much fame that
That
they had
nothing
no
matters.
character,
Yeah.
no integrity,
Yeah.
and so that's why I fell in love with this guy. He had character and integrity, and
Yep.
Patience.
yeah, and all the men were falling
And-
all over
and-
themselves
and
for me all
yoga.
the time, and I had no respect for that.
Yeah.
So he was
You had
my
to find the
wonderful
right one to
yoga
ignore
teacher.
you.
Yep. Exactly.
Unfortunately, I can't ignore her anymore.
What? Unfortunately.
No, what? Huh?
Do you have any?
The only other so there was something that I read something about that you were tied to, or maybe I don't know how much tied to, but you're a part of the Casino Royale soundtrack, or is that maybe a song that you had maybe through the Animals?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I was just so fortunate. I worked with some amazing people, and two of the people I worked with were Bacharach and David.
Okay.
And what happened was that pretty much right after I joined the Animals, I got a call from our manager, Mike Jeffrey, and I was like the go-to guy. He was making all these movie deals.
Okay.
So he called me up. He said, "Look," he said, "I've got a deal for Eric to sing this song for the Casino Royale. This is the original Casino
Yeah.
Royale, not the
Sean Connery one.
No.
No, it wasn't even
No.
Sean Connery.
Well,
it was like
You're
what's his
talking-
name?
you're thinking of Daniel Craig was the new one,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But the old one is, I don't know, was that
It's
Roger
not-
Moore, or was it?
No. It was
Was
like it was a total kind of spoof thing. It was a mess.
Oh, okay.
So
Try to find it.
so I said, yeah, that's cool. I'll make the thing work. So somehow or other, I wound up going up to Bert Bacharach's hotel room.
Okay.
He'd just come to London, and it was January in London, freezing cold. And here's this guy, tanned, and you know how good looking he is, right? And I mean, I'm not gay or anything. So, this is amazing. And he had Angie with him. He was married to Angie Dickinson, and she had this little baby. She just had a baby, and they were like California friendly. I'd never met Californians before,
Okay.
so I wasn't used to it. It was like, oh, these people are so friendly. Well,
Wow.
Londoners are not like that. At least they weren't in those days.
Yeah.
No.
But anyway, Bert had a moviola. You probably don't know what a moviola is, but in those days, before video and all that kind of stuff, it was like a machine, and you put the film on this thing, and it was electric. You
Crank it.
Yep.
Yeah.
crank it. make
you
it
look into
build
the
So it's
stuff,
like almost like a picture box in a sense.
Yeah.
You do that
Yeah.
and you watch
that
it.
kind of thing. So he showed me the sequence, and then he said, "Okay, this is how it goes." And I think he gave me what's called an acetate, like a rough recording of the thing. So okay. Fine.
I thought that was
great.
LSD there at first. Sorry, but
So
That was later.
that was later.
So we got the guys in the studio, we recorded the backing track, and then we arranged a day or two later to bring in some horns, and I wrote a chart for the horns, you know.
Yeah.
So the horns came in, and that night, let's see, our producer Tom Wilson was there, Michael Jeffrey, our manager, was there, Bert and Angie were there, and Hal David was there. And everybody go, "Oh, great chart, you know." So okay, fine. So all that was left was for Eric to put his vocal on. So, you know, I gave him the acetate with the recording, and I said, "Look, we're going to do it on Saturday, blah, 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 blah." So Saturday, we did this in the middle of the week, and then I set up the session for the Saturday, the vocal overdub. So Eric came in, and Hal David was there. No, Bert didn't come to that one. And Hal David was a bit more dour than Bert, but, you know, he was an okay guy. Well, Eric came in. He hadn't learned the song.
Yeah.
He didn't know the song. So I'm like trying to, you know, this is so I didn't say anything, but I'm going, this is so unprofessional. So I'm trying to have him record one line at a time, and blah, 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 blah. And finally he left, and Hal David turned to me, he said, "I can't use that." I said, "I know." I said, "I'm really sorry, I apologize." And that was pretty much the end of it, except about 2 weeks later, I was walking down the street in New York. This was in London, all this stuff, right? I was walking down the street in New York, maybe it's Fifth Avenue, I don't remember. And at a stoplight, there was Hal David. So we talked a little bit, and he said, "Oh yeah," he said, I'm recording Dionne Warwick." I said, "Well, could I stop by?" He said, "Sure. Yeah, come on by." So a day or two later, I went by the studio in New York, and there was Dionne Warwick, you know, recording, and it was just like a really cool thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
You guys just hanging out. It just happened to happen.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I have to say this. No, I mean, I'm a huge Bacharach and David fan. That song that they gave me, it was the worst Bacharach and David song I ever heard in my whole life.
And it was Peter Sellers. That's who was in
Yeah,
that
Peter
one.
Sellers.
And that's
And,
who was that?
Woody,
Bond.
what's his name?
Woody Allen.
Oh,
Yeah, Woody Allen.
Yeah.
He was in it too. And I think the whole thing was a total cock-up.
Yeah.
the Woody Allen was
it
in it.
did.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Oh,
It
wow.
did well.
Did
I
it?
mean, based on the numbers.
Right.
The budget was 12 million. They did 41. But
That's pretty good.
yeah, for back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was
For
that
any movie, really.
was that the movie that The Look of Love was from?
Is that the movie that he was in, or who?
Well, the song, The Look of Love. You know, the
Uh,
look of love is in your eye.
That's a good question.
The song that was in the movie?
Yeah.
Oh, there were songs in the movie because
There's a soundtrack on there.
Oh yeah. No, don't worry. It's just but actually, that Dusty recorded that, and I was with Dusty for not that long, from February of 1965 to about July, but it was really a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
Dusty was, you know, every night on stage, right, when she started, not when she started singing, but like some point when she was going, I get chicken skin from her voice. You know, oh, that's so cool. And it was really a lot of fun working with her. Great talent, great talent.
That's awesome. Was there anyone that you didn't work with, you know, when you were, you know, musically coming up that you wanted to work with that you didn't, or that maybe someone that you wanted to meet, maybe that you never ended up getting to meet?
Well, you know, it's funny because I met some pretty interesting characters. Like February of 67, I was in New York. This was when I ran into Hal David. And Slugs Tavern is this jazz club down in the Village. And it's a pretty heavy area. I don't know if it's still open. I doubt it is. But it was known as, you know, a good place. So I saw that the George Benson Quartet was playing there.
Okay.
And so got a cab down there. It was colder than hell. Went to this place. It was a Tuesday night. There was maybe like 10 people in the place.
Yeah.
And up on stage, George Benson just tearing the place up. So they finished their set, and I went up to him and I said, "Can I buy you a beer?" He said, "Sure." And I explained who I was. And we sat down and had guitarist talk for about 20 minutes, you know, on his break.
Yeah.
And it was just really cool. I mean, he was really down to earth guy. And I knew who he was because I'd heard records he used to play with this guy called Brother Jack McDuff, a Hammond organ player. So I knew about his playing. And he was just really friendly, really down to earth. And guitar players can always talk guitars. And we do.
Yeah.
And then later on in LA, this may not mean so much to you, but this is one of the greatest jazz guitarists of the 20th century. We were doing a local TV show in LA, the Woody Woodbury Show. And when we got there was a bandstand. It was all pre-recorded. And the musicians weren't there. They were on a break, right? So I'm a curious type of guy. So I walked up on the stage, and there was a guitar case. And on the guitar case, it said, Joe Pass. And I'm like, Joe Pass, Joe Pass, Joe Pass. Oh. So Joe showed up, and I introduced myself. He's like, hey, man, hey, go, where you staying? And the guy was so down to earth and so friendly. And, he wasn't known outside of jazz circles like George Benson is.
Yeah.
But Joe was a fantastic guitar player and a really sweet guy.
Yeah.
So, this was all very heady stuff for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. Very cool.
Just trying to think of somebody that I wanted to work with, but I didn't. I can't really think of too much. I wasn't so much into, I was like, oh, would you like to work with Elvis? Yeah, I would have liked to work with Elvis, but I didn't care,
Yeah.
I was really more interested in musicians.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like you have a lot of influence on them. I mean, look at Jimi Hendrix for one. And you didn't even know he was going to mention you in his book, and then
I didn't know.
And here he is, mentioning in the book that he wrote, and you were actually a good influence on him.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He would take you to Guitar Island with him, basically.
Yeah,
That's
really.
what, you know what I mean? Like if you got to go on an island, he would pick you to go. That's pretty cool. That's amazing. You know that question where they say, "What do you take to an island?"
Oh yeah,
take my
yes,
guitar,
yeah.
I mean-
I get it.
Well, you take. Well, you know what I mean.
I take my guitar with
Yeah.
me.
But
That's
also
like a
some of the
Beatles
great
song.
players too, right?
Yep.
That's awesome. All right. Well, what? So there was some other. Well, I saw some other soundtrack stuff, which was Sky Pilot.
Oh, Sky Pilot.
That was
yeah.
in other stuff, which
Do you remember Sky Pilot?
I did. I listened to it after I looked that up. but
So you're not that old.
no, yeah, I'm not. No, but I saw and I looked that up because it was in other stuff, that movies and shows that I've seen. I was like, oh wow, I was like, that's pretty cool.
Well, Sky Pilot was really interesting. It was Eric's idea. I've got to give him credit. He wrote the words to the song, and some of the other guys put the music together. But he wanted to create a tapestry, really, like a backdrop.
Yeah.
And he said, I want a battle, I want bagpipes. Okay, fine. So it just so happened that the band of the Royal Scots Guards were touring the United States at the time, and they were in LA. So arrangements were made. I didn't have any part of that. And on a Saturday morning, we had about, I don't know, four or five pipers and a couple of drummers, and the pipe major, of course, has to be the pipe major. So they came into the studio, these Scotsmen, and they said, well, what do you want us to play? I said, well, play anything, just we'll figure it out. So they played this song called Blue Bonnets Over the Border. And when I heard the song, I heard the tempo, I heard the key, or, figured out the key.
Yeah.
And I said, what we'll do, we hadn't recorded anything. We're going to build a song around the bagpipes. So starting from the bagpipes, we work backwards. So if you listen to, Sky Pilot's it's really, depending on whether you hear it on an album or on a single, it's in either one or two parts. But it is in two distinct movements, you might say. So the first part is just acoustic guitars and voices and drums and bass.
Yeah.
And then the second part, it goes from that, and it tells a story. It talks about Sky Pilot, a padre, blessing the boys as they're getting ready to go into battle. And then at the end of that section, they go off into the battle. Well, then you start to go into the sound effects. You hear a dive bomber come down, and then you hear a bomb, right? And men shouting and shooting and all that kind of stuff. And out the middle of this comes the bagpipes. And it's, the tempo is exactly the same as the band. So when the bagpipes finish, it's an absolute seamless cut between the bagpipes and the band. So it's absolutely goes straight in. And then it tells the story that's being told is then the aftermath of the battle. and then bring in strings and horns, flutes, and things. I wrote the chart for that, and of course the punchline of the song is, a young soldier so ill looks at the sky pilot, remembers the words, thou shalt not kill, bum bum bum, sky pilot. So that's how all that came about.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you did a few of those. We talked about Casino Royale, and then we talked about this one. Was it just your manager coming to you with like, "Hey, we have more. You're doing really good with these."
Yeah, like in that period, like right after I joined the band, like I joined the band in November of '66. There was about two or three of these things came right up. Like he called me up and he said, "Look," he said, we need to write a song for this movie, Stranger in the House. James Mason, I can't remember. Oh, Bobby Darin.
Yeah,
Bobby Darin was in it. Says, okay. So nothing happened. So then Mike called me up. He said, I just got the movie company called me up and they said, if they don't have the song by the day after tomorrow, the whole thing's, So got the guys in the studio that night, put the whole thing together, mixed it.
yeah,
Wow.
Yeah, it was, and the song was called "Ain't That So," and because Bobby Darin, he was this kind of heavy villain type, and he kept going, "Ain't that so? Ain't that so?" So
It turned into a song.
turned
That's
into
awesome.
a song, and the movie company liked it so much they used it 3 different sections in the movie.
Wow.
So did you read the scripts to these movies, or
No.
did they just give you a synopsis?
Just
of
give
like,
you just
Yeah,
a
like
synopsis.
what is-
two
where they're gonna
films?
play
That's
it.
amazing, though.
Wow.
And they had a premiere in London's West End, so they invited us, right? So 4 of us, the band, Eric refused to go, but the 4 of us, the band, we all went down to the higher place and got tuxedos
Okay.
and went to this thing, all the, like Elandra said, all the hoi
Yeah.
polloi, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Hoity-toity people.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
The power
And,
hungries.
and the movie was stiff. It was so bad.
But the music was great.
The music was great. Yeah, wow.
That's so funny. The
Yeah.
inspirations, where it comes from. You know what I mean? Like as far
really.
as that guy telling you things and you wrote a whole song.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So with this CD just came out, correct?
This
This
one?
album, yeah.
This has been out since about 2003.
Okay.
2003.
And-
But it was-
Can
it
we
was
get
really-
that on? You can get that on like Apple
iTunes.
Music or.
Oh yeah,
or-
it's it was recorded here in Phoenix, even though it's Hawaiian in nature.
Oh, really?
We recorded it here, yeah. And there's a company here called Invincible Music, and I'm now recording a new album with them.
Oh,
That was
awesome.
my next question.
Did I
to-
give you that?
Yeah, the flash drive. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So when you download those songs, give me the flash drive
yeah,
back.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
you can this is different from Hawaiian. This is we're doing Sikh sacred music, but we're calling it urban kirtan.
Okay.
And
Okay.
there's some we're doing kind of hip hop, which I'm like, I never thought I'd be doing hip hop, but here I am.
Yeah.
So
You're exploring
I'm
again.
exploring. Well,
Yeah.
my producer's forcing me into it.
Oh.
Does that put you out of your comfort zone a little bit, or it
but-
does? Yeah.
But I'm finding that now I'm pretty secure about writing the text. I'm still not secure about my delivery. I've got to do a lot more practice. I mean, I can't sound like LL Cool J or whatever his name is, but I've got my own style.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's you're expanding.
You're branching out. You're mixing it up, which is really good.
Yeah.
So when it's done and you're like, I really like it or I don't like it, would you decide to go into it a little bit more, or would you be like, you know what, this isn't for me, or both? Like depending on how it kind of ends up.
well, I had no idea that this was going to come up this way.
Okay.
My producer, who's an interesting character, he pretty much forced it on me. He says, well, this album's going out with hip hop, so you might as well do it unless you want me to get somebody else in it. I said, well, I'll do it. So I don't know. I don't know which way it's going to go. We're breaking new ground.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how the more traditional Sikhs are going to take to this,
Okay.
because it's got some pretty intense stuff on there.
Yeah.
But I think the young Sikhs are going to like it because they're getting really bored with the old way of doing things. And
Okay.
they're looking for some different styles. So we'll see what happens.
Do we have a release date of when that's going to be coming out, or
No,
is it
no,
still
No, not yet.
not yet.
still
It's
a work in
we're still
progress?
working on it, but it's going to get finished over the next couple of weeks. At least my part of it's because I'm leaving.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. They
Yeah,
have until the 9th, right?
yeah, that's
Something
right.
like- Yeah. Wow.
So then you guys are going back to New Zealand.
That's right. And we when we get there, well, first of all, we got to 72 hours before we leave. We got to prove that we're COVID free.
Okay.
So we got to get tested, get it written, right?
Wow.
Then when we go to, I'm sure it'll be both when we check in here and when we check in LA. We got to provide the certificates that we're COVID free. Then we got to provide a certificate that we have a booking for quarantine when we get to New Zealand.
Oh wow.
And of course the tickets, but tickets, we got the tickets. So when we get to New Zealand, we will be met at the airport. I don't know if they test us right at the airport or if they take us to the quarantine and test us there. But we're pretty much, once they test us, we can't leave our rooms. Not we can leave our rooms anyway, but we can't leave our rooms until the results of the test come back. So we'll be tested before we go, tested when we arrive, and I think there'll be another test before we come out of quarantine. And we'll be in a hotel. We'll be getting fed, presumably,
Hopefully.
getting our laundry done, presumably.
What is
Maybe.
what is COVID like in New Zealand?
Well,
right
that's
now?
the
Like,
thing.
is
There
it-
isn't any. There isn't.
okay.
Well, that's not entirely true. They
There
just
is
had
some, but it's-
one
yeah.
case over the last 2 weeks where just one case. Somebody I think was in quarantine 2 weeks, and after the quarantine they developed it. But it's one case, and they're making a huge big deal out of it.
Is that recent or was that a while ago or like last
Well,
year?
we were there. I think it was March when they did the first lockdown.
Yeah.
And it wasn't too bad for us because we live right next to the beach.
Hmm.
So you could go to the beach, you couldn't go swimming.
Okay.
You couldn't go, stand up paddleboarding.
Right.
And apparently the idea behind that was that if you got into trouble and a lifeguard had
Somebody
to
to help you.
somebody had
Yeah.
to, we're gonna,
I guess that doesn't make
give
sense.
you the
Yeah,
kiss
it
of
makes
death,
Someone had to
kiss
get-
of life,
yeah.
and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it was a little strange, but we were okay with it just because we don't go out much anyway.
Okay.
But we do
Yeah.
go to the beach a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, New Zealand. I mean, why
I know,
not?
why
right?
not?
You have to.
That's awesome. What is okay, so if we were to go to New Zealand, is there a place that you recommend to go to?
Well,
Like,
it depends. What are you looking for?
I don't know. Okay, somewhere to eat. Because we look like we both like to
Yeah.
eat.
There we
Well,
go.
What sounds
I did
good
notice
to eat?
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
What would sound good to eat there? Or what would be a place that you'd recommend to go?
Well, I wouldn't recommend eating New Zealand food,
Okay. All right.
Oh,
but there's a lot of ethnic restaurants. There.
Okay.
A lot of good Indian restaurants, Chinese, Thai, all that kind of stuff. New Zealand food's kind of, well, actually, it's not as bad as it used to be. They've like a lot of places over the last 20 years or so, they've gone foodie.
Mm.
So they
Yeah.
have food channels, food cooking shows, that type of stuff.
So they're getting better. They're
They're getting
practicing.
better. But I'll tell you what, first time I went there back in, the first time I went was with the animals, but that was 67. But in 81, I went to meet Elandra's parents for the first time. And, some of the food they had, it reminded me of British food. It was
Mm.
so bland that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
meat and 2 overcooked veg. Of course, I'm a vegetarian, so, but
well, it's even like London. Isn't their dish tiki masala? So it's not even something from there. It's from somewhere else.
Mhm.
well, that's apparently that's created in London.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many Indian restaurants in London. I haven't been
Wow.
in London in years, but I know
Yeah.
that's how it is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, before we wind it down, is there one club that you enjoyed playing at throughout your journey?
The whiskey
The whiskey.
The whiskey. In LA? Is that
in
right?
LA,
Yeah.
in Hollywood, West Hollywood.
That's Hollywood.
Yeah, that was the Fillmore was pretty good too. So the film, of course, it became Fillmore West, but the original Fillmore ballroom.
How do you feel with like a lot of even since like the 70s, a lot of these bands went to these bigger stadiums versus like smaller clubs? Like, What's your thoughts on?
I mean, like concerts versus
Yeah,
or
like
like stadium shows versus
stadium shows versus like
Yeah.
Well, we never played stadiums. We did
Yeah.
play the Hollywood Bowl. We played the Cow Palace in San Francisco.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of any other big venue that we played. I don't remember anything. That was the Hollywood Bowl was probably the biggest. That's 10,000 people,
Yeah.
which is a lot of people,
That
but,
is-
but it's not a stadium.
Yeah, no, that's still
And
amazing.
of course, the thing was that in those days, we didn't have any equipment. I mean, no, that's an exaggeration, but the first tour that I did of the States, we traveled in 2 station wagons with all our gear and our suitcases.
Man.
Yeah, and we were like, well, wait a minute, we thought we were rock and roll stars here. What happened? But all we had one guitar, one amplifier, 3 times because there was 3 guys. Two guitar players, one drum set. That was it.
Wow.
That was it. But you can't do a stadium show with it. Well, the Beatles did. I mean, they did Shea Stadium. They had 2 road managers. That was it. They had Brian Epstein and 2 road managers. I don't know how they did it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, the only reason I ask is that I've gone to a concert at both like a stadium and something more intimate, and I feel like more intimate
Is better.
is a lot better.
Oh,
Being close to the band, the music surrounds you. There's not that many people there. I mean,
Well,
it is
that
still
was one of the good things about the whiskey. It was really pretty intimate. And the audience was as close as I am to you guys.
Yeah.
And they're mostly women anyway. So, but
Yeah.
never mind about that.
That's awesome.
Well, we appreciate that you came on.
Yes.
We're gonna have a few of your tracks once I download your.
Yeah, we'll put them on the episode as well. I would say, right?
Yep, throw them right in the
Oh, very
background,
cool.
and then from there, I really appreciate that you came out.
really?
Is there anything else that you want to plug or anything that you got coming up, or maybe the Elandra, the book? Do you want to where we can get that book at?
Books on Amazon.
Amazon?
Yeah, it's called. I'll tell you about it. It's called "From Stardom to Wisdom: Healing and Love Beyond the Spotlight" by Elandra Meredith, and it's my wife.
Very awesome.
She's amazing.
She
Totally
is.
amazing.
And I should say that this CD that is part Indian and part Hawaiian music, because he's a star in several cultures. He was.
You're making them blush.
He was, yeah. Well, actually, we were invited to chant for the governor, which was major.
Of Hawaii.
As
Oh,
if-
wow.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
just breaking protocol, breaking tradition, because you're only supposed to have kahuna who are born to do these things,
Mhm.
and we were invited to do things like this. He
That's
was
awesome.
the first to chant. I was the first to do a chant, 4-minute chant written especially for him in the Blaisdell Auditorium in
Wow.
Honolulu. He was the first non-Indian to sing in the Golden Temple in India. So
Oh,
he's
wow.
a legend
Wow.
in several cultures, really.
I'm a legend in my own mind. That's it.
No, you're not.
He's very humble.
He's
That's what
too
he is.
Yeah.
humble. He's way
Yeah.
too humble. I struggle to get him to get promotion for him. He doesn't want to do it. But the reason I'm mentioning this is because after breaking my ankle and having it healed overnight, smashed bones, everything,
Oh, wow.
proven by X-rays,
Hmm.
I went into the healing field, and then became a hands-on healer. And this music is extraordinary for healing all kinds of ailments, cancer, bones, all kinds of things. So I've traveled internationally, been invited to teach health and healing all over the world,
That's awesome.
and done thousands of sessions, and always play this music for the sessions. And sometimes miracles
Yeah,
of cancer disappearing
There's actually some pretty nice videos from this
on YouTube.
CD on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah. Check that out.
Under the name Antion.
Yeah.
I'll actually link them in when we drop ours
Fantastic.
on YouTube.
Yeah,
Yes.
and we are going to be working on a documentary. There's a few people interested in making a documentary about our lives. It's
Oh.
amazing.
Nice.
Well, I want.
Yeah, we're gonna check
more-
that out.
Exactly. No more of that.
Well, again, we appreciate you guys coming on
Oh,
and
you're
hanging out with us.
awesome.
And
Really
Yeah.
fun, guys. Thank you so much.
well, thank you.
This has been the Amigos PC. Make sure to like, subscribe, and review us on all your podcasting platforms. Visit us at amigospc.net for our entire library of content and Amigos merch. Till next time, adios.